The apartment felt emptier than usual when Jake returned from his 12-hour shift at the tech startup. At 28, he'd grown tired of dating apps and awkward first dates that led nowhere. When his coworker mentioned the new roommate program, some cutting-edge initiative by Nexus Corp that promised perfect compatibility through advanced AI matching, he'd signed up half-drunk on a Friday night, expecting maybe a holographic assistant or a chatbot to keep him company. What he didn't expect was Mira. She materialized in his living room the following Tuesday evening, and Jake nearly dropped his takeout. She wasn't a hologram. She was real, flesh and blood, with russet-colored fox ears that twitched nervously atop her head and a bushy tail that swished behind her. Her amber eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made his breath catch. "Hello, partner," she said, her voice soft but certain. "I'm Mira. Your permanent roommate." "Permanent?" Jake set down his food carefully. The program said it was a 6-month trial. Mira's ears flattened slightly. "The contract I signed said permanent placement. Once bonded, we cannot separate." She pulled out a holographic document that shimmered between them. "See? Paragraph 7, Clause 3, participants agree to cohabitation terms as specified in their individual agreements." Jake's stomach dropped as he scanned his own contract on his phone. His version clearly stated trial period and voluntary participation. Someone had screwed up royally, probably mixed up 2 different program tracks. "Look, Mira, I think there's been a mistake." "No." Her voice cracked slightly. "I gave up everything to be here. My home, my previous life. The program promised me a permanent place, someone who would." She trailed off, wrapping her tail around herself defensively. Jake ran a hand through his hair, guilt already creeping in despite the absurdity. Okay. Let's figure this out tomorrow. You can take the bedroom tonight." "We share the bedroom," Mira stated matter-of-factly. "The bonding process requires proximity." "Absolutely not." But Mira was already walking toward his room, her tail held high. "The contract specifies cohabitation protocols. Don't worry, I researched human sleeping habits. I'll stay on my side." That first night, Jake lay rigid on one side of his bed while Mira curled up on the other, her breathing eventually settling into a soft rhythm. Her tail occasionally brushed against his leg, impossibly soft and warm. He stared at the ceiling, wondering what he'd gotten himself into. By morning, he woke to find her nestled against him, one arm draped across his chest, her fox ears tickling his chin. When her eyes fluttered open and met his, she smiled sleepily. "Good morning, partner. See? The bonding is already working." Jake realized then that this was going to be much more complicated than a simple contract error. The first week was chaos. Mira took permanent roommate seriously, too seriously. She reorganized his kitchen, critiqued his breakfast choices, and somehow convinced his smart home system to recognize her voice commands over his. When Jake tried to work from home, she'd drape herself across his desk, asking endless questions about human customs. "Why do you drink that bitter brown liquid every morning?" She sniffed his coffee suspiciously. "Because without it, I can't function." "Inefficient. Your species should evolve better waking mechanisms." But she watched him with such genuine curiosity that he couldn't stay annoyed. The bathroom situation proved most challenging. Jake had grown accustomed to his solitary routine, long showers, the door always open, wandering around in towels. Mira shattered that privacy immediately. On day 3, he emerged from the shower to find her sitting on his bathroom counter, examining his cologne bottles. "Mira! Privacy!" She glanced at his towel-clad form with mild interest. "Your modesty is fascinating. My previous environment had communal bathing." Her tail swished playfully. "But if it makes you comfortable, I can look away. Please leave the bathroom when I'm in here." She hopped down gracefully, pausing at the door. "Your physiological reactions say otherwise, partner." Your heart rate increased, but not from anger. The knowing look she gave him made heat rush to his face. After she left, Jake pressed his forehead against the cool mirror. This was getting dangerous. But Mira wasn't just chaos, she was surprisingly perceptive. When Jake's startup pitch fell through that Friday, he came home defeated, ready to drown his sorrows in whiskey and video games. Instead, he found her waiting with takeout from his favorite ramen place. "You're sad," she stated, setting food before him. "The human custom is comfort food and companionship, correct?" Something in her earnest expression cracked his armor. "Yeah. Thanks, Mira." They ate in comfortable silence until she asked, "Tell me about your dream. The one that failed today." So he did. He talked about his app idea, his hopes of finally making something meaningful, his fear of being stuck forever in someone else's vision. Mira listened intently, her ears perked forward, occasionally asking surprisingly insightful questions. When he finished, she moved closer on the couch, her warmth seeping into his side. "Human ambition is beautiful," she said softly. "Where I come from, our paths were predetermined. Watching you fight for your dreams, even when they hurt you. I understand now why the program matched us." Jake turned to her, finding her amber eyes luminous in the dim light. "Why did you really join this program, Mira?" Her tail wrapped around his wrist, an unconscious gesture he was learning meant vulnerability. "I wanted to matter to someone. To be chosen, not assigned." She laughed bitterly. "Ironic, since I was assigned to you." "Hey." Jake caught her chin gently. "Maybe the assignment was the beginning. Doesn't mean that's all it has to be." The air between them shifted, charged with something neither could name yet. Mira leaned into his touch, and Jake realized his thumb was tracing her jawline. Her lips parted slightly. His phone buzzed aggressively. "Work emergency." The moment shattered. As Jake dealt with the crisis, Mira curled up beside him on the couch, her head eventually coming to rest on his shoulder. When he finally finished, she was asleep, looking smaller and more vulnerable than usual. He carried her to bed, their bed, he realized, and as he laid her down, she mumbled, "Don't leave." "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered, surprising himself with how much he meant it. Monday morning brought unwelcome clarity. Jake contacted Nexus Corp, determined to untangle the contract confusion. The customer service rep, a bored-sounding guy named Tim, put him on hold 6 times before delivering the news. "Yeah, dude, looks like a system glitch. She got the permanence contract meant for the enhanced bonding track. You got the trial version. We can initiate separation protocols by Wednesday." "Wednesday?" Jake glanced toward the kitchen where Mira was attempting to make pancakes, her tail swishing with concentration. "That's 2 days. Company policy. We'll relocate her to a proper placement, compensate you for the inconvenience." "What happens to her?" Jake interrupted. Tim's tone shifted to corporate script. "Participants in failed placements undergo reassessment and rematching. Standard procedure." After hanging up, Jake sat heavily on the couch. 2 days. He should feel relieved, this whole situation had been a mistake from the start. Instead, his chest felt tight. Mira emerged triumphantly with a plate of misshapen but edible pancakes. "I conquered your primitive cooking surface." She noticed his expression. "What's wrong?" He couldn't tell her. "Not yet." "Nothing. These look great." But Mira wasn't fooled. Her ears flattened as she studied him. "You're planning something, Mira. I can feel it. The bond we've been forming, it's real, Jake. You feel it too." She set the plate down, moving toward him with predatory grace. "Humans lie with words, but your body tells truth. The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. How you move closer when we sleep. The hitch in your breath when I touch you." She was right in front of him now, close enough that he could see flecks of gold in her amber eyes. Her hand came up to rest over his heart. "This beats faster when I'm near," she whispered. "Why?" Jake caught her wrist, but didn't push her away. "Because this is complicated, Mira. Because you deserve someone who chose you, not someone assigned to you by accident. You're wrong. Her free hand cupped his face, claws carefully retracted. The assignment brought us together. But everything since, that's been choice. My choice to care. Your choice to let me in. The tension that had been building for days finally snapped. Jake pulled her closer, and Mira came willingly, straddling his lap with fluid grace. Her tail wrapped around them both as she leaned in, her lips brushing his ear. I researched human intimacy, she murmured. The theory is fascinating. But I think I prefer practical application. Mira. His hands found her waist, feeling the impossible warmth of her through her thin shirt. If we do this, everything changes. Everything already changed. She pulled back to look at him, vulnerable and fierce. I don't want to be your burden or your responsibility. I want to be your choice. Can I be? Instead of answering, Jake kissed her. Mira made a small sound of surprise that melted into something deeper as she pressed against him. Her fingers tangled in his hair, her tail tightening around them. She tasted like maple syrup and something wild he couldn't name. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Myra's eyes were luminous. The bonding protocol, she gasped, didn't mention this. There's no protocol for this, Jake managed, his hands sliding under her shirt, finding skin softer than silk. This is just us. Mira shivered at his touch, her ears flicking forward. Then show me more. He did, losing himself in discovering what made her gasp, where she was sensitive, how she arched into his touch with inhuman grace. When his lips found the base of her ear, she practically melted, a purring sound rumbling from her chest. Jake, she breathed, grinding against him. Bedroom. Now. They barely made it, clothes leaving a trail across the apartment. And when they finally came together, skin to skin, it felt like something clicking into place, like the contract had been wrong all along, and this was the real bonding. Afterward, Mira curled against him, her tail wrapped around his leg possessively. Jake stared at the ceiling, knowing Wednesday was still coming. He had 2 days to figure out how to keep her. Tuesday morning arrived with Jake's alarm and Myra's soft breathing against his neck. He'd barely slept, mind racing through impossible scenarios. Every solution ended the same way, with her gone. You're thinking too loud, Mira mumbled, nuzzling closer. Your anxiety smells like burnt coffee. You can smell emotions? Enhanced senses. She propped herself up on one elbow, her hair gloriously messy. Are you going to tell me what's actually wrong, or do I need to torture it out of you? Her tail traced up his thighs suggestively. Jake caught her tail gently. The company called yesterday. About our contracts. The playfulness drained from Myra's expression. They're separating us. Wednesday. They'll relocate you, find you a proper placement. Stop. She sat up fully, wrapping the sheet around herself like armor. When were you going to tell me? I was trying to find a solution first. Without consulting me? Her ears flattened. I'm not some problem to solve, Jake. I'm your partner. The word hung between them, heavy with new meaning after last night. You're right, Jake admitted. I'm sorry. I don't want to lose you, Mira. And I don't know how to fix this. Something in her expression softened. She crawled back to him, cupping his face with both hands. Then stopped trying to fix it alone. We're bonded now, for real this time. Not because of contracts or corporations, but because we chose each other. Her thumb traced his lips. Let me help. They spent the morning researching, Jake on his laptop while Mira worked through her holographic interface, her tail swishing with concentration. The news wasn't encouraging. Nexus Corp held the rights to Myra's placement, standard for enhanced bonding participants who'd surrendered previous lives for the program. It's essentially indentured servitude, Jake said darkly, reading through the fine print. They can relocate you anywhere, to anyone. Myra's claws extended involuntarily, leaving tiny marks in the table. I won't go. They'll have to drag me out. There has to be another way. Jake pulled up contract law forums, reaching out to his lawyer friend, desperate for loopholes. The answer came from an unexpected source, buried in paragraph 19 of the enhanced bonding contract. If both parties could prove irreversible bonding through a series of psychological and physiological tests, the placement became permanent regardless of original terms. Irreversible bonding? Mira read over his shoulder, her breath warm against his ear. What does that mean? Jake pulled up the criteria: sustained elevated oxytocin levels, synchronized biometric patterns, demonstrated emotional dependence, and, he felt heat rise to his face, physical intimacy creating neurochemical bonding markers. Myra's eyes widened. Last night. We might have accidentally fulfilled some requirements. Jake turned to face her. But Mira, this isn't just about gaming the system. If we do this, if we claim irreversible bonding, we're saying this is permanent. Really permanent. No trial period, no exit clause. She moved into his lap in one fluid motion, her amber eyes intense. Do you want an exit clause? His hands found her waist automatically. No. But I need to know you don't either. That this isn't just about escaping relocation. Jake. She pressed her forehead to his, a gesture he'd learned was intimate for her kind. In my world, we have a saying, the tail doesn't lie. When we bond, truly bond, our tails mirror our partner's movements unconsciously. Watch. She pulled back slightly, her tail unwrapping from around herself. Jake hadn't noticed before, but whenever he shifted, her tail swayed to match. When his breathing quickened, hers did too. It was subtle but unmistakable, they were synchronized. This started days ago, Mira whispered. Before last night. Before we admitted anything. My body recognized you as mine before my mind caught up. Her claws traced his chest gently. I'm already irreversibly bonded, Jake. The tests will only confirm what I already know. Jake's phone buzzed, his lawyer friend with news. There was a clinic that could perform the bonding assessment, but they needed to go immediately. The appointment was for that afternoon. Last chance to back out, Jake said, though his arms tightened around her. Mira kissed him hard enough to steal his breath. Never. The clinic was sterile and impersonal, the technician briskly professional as she hooked them both up to biometric sensors. But when she ran the preliminary scans, her eyebrows rose. These readings, how long have you two been bonded? About a week, Jake said. Impossible. These markers typically take months to develop. She ran the tests again. Your neurochemical synchronization is at 97%. I'd never seen levels this high outside of year-long partnerships. Mira squeezed Jake's hand, her tail curling around his wrist. The technician noticed, making a note. The physical examination was more awkward, invasive questions about their intimacy, tests that measured their physiological responses to each other. By the end, Jake felt exposed in ways that had nothing to do with the medical gown. But when the final results came through, the technician smiled, her first real expression all afternoon. Congratulations. You're legally bonded under enhanced partnership protocols. Nexus Corp no longer has jurisdiction over placement. You're free. Outside the clinic, Mira threw herself at Jake, nearly knocking them both over. We did it! You're stuck with me forever. Forever's a long time, Jake teased, catching her. Her expression turned serious. Is it long enough? He kissed her answer, there on the street, not caring who saw. Not even close. Wednesday came anyway, but instead of a separation, they woke to their first morning of real permanence. Mira was already awake, watching him with an expression so tender it made Jake's chest ache. Hi, she whispered. Hi yourself. He pulled her closer, marveling at how perfectly she fit against him. No regrets? Only that we wasted a week pretending we weren't inevitable. Her tail traced patterns on his skin. I have a confession, though. Oh? Mira bit her lip, a human gesture she'd picked up from him. I knew about the contract mix-up. From the first day. Jake propped himself up. What? I accessed my full contract that first night while you slept. I saw the discrepancy immediately. She wouldn't meet his eyes. I should have told you. But I was terrified that if you knew it was a mistake, you'd send me back before we had a chance. Mira. I know it was wrong. I manipulated the situation by staying quiet. Her voice cracked. But I'd do it again. Because if I'd left that first day, we never would have had this. Any of this. Jake processed this, a dozen emotions warring inside him. You lied to me. Yes. She finally looked at him, eyes shimmering. And I'm sorry. But I'm not sorry for fighting for us before you knew we were worth fighting for. He should be angry. By all rights, he should feel betrayed. Instead, he found himself laughing, a slightly hysterical sound that made Myra's ears perk in confusion. What's funny? I called the company that Monday, Jake admitted. 3 days in. I knew about the error too. Myra's eyes widened. You knew? But you let me stay? I told them I needed time to adjust to the situation before separation. Bought us a week. He cupped her face. I was falling for you even then, Mira. I just wasn't ready to admit it. Understanding dawned, followed by incredulous joy. We're both idiots. Completely. He kissed her nose. But we're permanent idiots now, so we're stuck with each other. Mira tackled him back into the mattress, all feline grace and wild joy. I love you, she said fiercely. I didn't know I could love until I met you, but now I can't imagine not loving you. I love you too. The words felt both new and ancient. Even when you reorganized my kitchen. Especially when I reorganized your kitchen. It was a disaster. They spent the morning in bed, relearning each other now that the pressure was off. Jake discovered that Mira was ticklish behind her knees, that she made the softest sounds when he kissed the base of her tail, that she was surprisingly dominant when she wanted to be. Humans are so fragile, she purred, pinning his wrists above his head with effortless strength. I could break you. But you won't. Jake arched into her touch confidently. Never. She released him to trace claws gently down his chest. You're mine to protect now. My partner. My bondmate. My forever. The words sent heat through him. Say that again. Mine. He flipped their positions in one smooth motion, making her yelp with surprise and delight. Mine too, he growled against her throat, feeling her pulse jump. Think you can handle forever with a possessive human? Try me. They didn't leave the apartment until evening, finally emerging disheveled and starving. The city felt different somehow, brighter, more alive. Or maybe that was just them. At the ramen place that had become their spot, Mira tried to eat with chopsticks and failed spectacularly, noodles dangling from her mouth while Jake laughed until he cried. She retaliated by stealing his gyoza, her tail swishing with mischief. We should tell your friends, Mira said eventually. About us. The bond. Everything. They're going to think I'm insane. You are insane. You bonded yourself to a fox girl you barely knew. She grinned. Lucky for you, I'm insane too. Walking home, Myra's hand in his and her tail wrapped around his wrist, Jake marveled at how much had changed in just 2 weeks. He'd gone from lonely and directionless to this, to her, to them, to a future he couldn't wait to explore. Hey Mira? Thank you for misunderstanding the roommate program. She stopped walking, turning to face him under a streetlight. The urban glow caught in her amber eyes, making them luminous. Thank you for letting me stay anyway. They kissed there on the sidewalk, and Jake felt it again, that sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place. Not because of contracts or corporations or cosmic intervention. But because 2 lonely souls had found each other in the chaos and decided that accident was just another word for fate. Later, Curled together in bed with Myra's soft breathing against his chest and her tail wrapped around them both, Jake pulled up his phone one last time. There was an email from Nexus Corp, a survey about his roommate experience. Would you recommend the roommate program to others? Jake looked down at Myra, at this impossible, wonderful person who'd crashed into his life and refused to leave. He clicked 5 stars and typed, life-changing. Just be prepared for the unexpected. Then he set his phone aside, wrapped his arms around his partner, his bondmate, his forever, and fell asleep smiling. The misunderstanding had brought them together. But love had made them stay.